Namaste. Welcome back to AWS Certified Solutions Architect Associate Exam Questions Review. Okay, so let's right away start with our 16th question today. A solutions architect is designing a workload that will store hourly energy consumption by business tenants in a building. The sensors will feed a database through HTTP requests that will add up usage for each tenant. The solutions architect must use managed services when possible. The workload will receive more features in the future as the solutions architect adds independent components. Which solution will meet these requirements with least operational overhead? So they didn't talk anything about a specific tool or anything like that. They just left it to us. They left it to us, but they gave us hints like the sensors will feed it to a database through HTTP requests. So obviously we would need something like an API to get through to accept the HTTP request, and then that API should send it to the database and whatnot, right? So that is clear from this. So let's look at the options, shall we, based upon that. This is, through HTTP request, right? Oops. Okay, so just scan through the answers, and if you scan through the answers, there are only two options that actually use API gateway and the other two doesn't. So you can ignore them immediately because they are talking about, if you look at B, use an elastic load balancer that is supported by scaling group of Amazon EC2 to receive and process the data from sensors. Okay. But what they are talking about are EC2 instances. Maybe on EC2 instance, maybe you have a software installed which will accept HTTP request. But the thing is, they are talking about the solution architect must use managed service. EC2 is not a managed service. It is something that you have to set up and you have to manage it by yourself. So let's cancel those two out. Okay. Because even this has EC2, this has EC2. So when you see EC2 and operational overhead, don't consider EC2 because there is too much operational overhead associated with EC2s. Okay. Then let's look at A and C. Okay. It both uses Amazon API gateway to get the HTTP requests. That is fine. Then they're talking about, if you look at this, both has Lambda functions to receive the data from the sensors, process the data. Okay, that is all fine. But if you look at the later part, here it is storing in Amazon DynamoDB, whereas this is storing in Microsoft SQL Server Expert on EC2. Again, as I said, as soon as you see EC2, forget about managed, because at least if they say Amazon RDS, we would think of it. The reason being, it is a managed service, whereas EC2, as I mentioned, it's not a managed service. Cross it out. Why would you have an EC2 and then install Microsoft SQL Server on top of it? If you want a managed service, at least you would use Amazon RDS, Microsoft SQL Server on it. Okay, so that leaves us with this, which is the only option where Amazon API Gateway is managed, Lambda is managed, DynamoDB is managed. They are not just managed services, they are all serverless. So how that is, the best solution for this particular scenario. Okay, so you can eliminate things immediately like this, right? Whenever you see operational overhead, and if it has EC2, forget about them. If all has EC2, then that is a different story. But most of the time, if there is operational overhead, it is not, the answer won't have EC2 because EC2 has too much operational overhead. Okay, so that's that. See, you don't even have to go through some other things that are mentioned here by elimination. Okay, question number 17. A company runs multiple EC2 Linux instances in a VPC across two availability zones. Let's mark this. The instances host applications that use a hierarchical directory structure. Okay. The applications need to read and write rapidly and concurrently, rapidly and concurrently to shared storage. What should the solutions architect do to make it? So they are talking about a storage device, and the main thing to remember here is it runs on, oh, sorry, you don't need this actually, it's not required, this one. Multiple EC2 Linux instances, then you need to look at hierarchical directory structure, then you need to look at shared storage. So whenever you see shared storage, then the answer is blindly EFS, because none of the others they don't share between different instances or different operating systems, because EBS is attached to one EC2 instance. But EBS has something called multi-attach, but that only works with Nitro instances. Here there is no mentioning of Nitro instances, so you can cross out EBS because EBS are attached to one instance. They're saying they're attaching it to each instance. The shared storage won't work with it, but right, if you're attaching one disk to one EC2, another disk to another disk, to where is the sharing? And same goes with this one as well. I know why they are confusing here with IO2, because IO2 and IO1 are the only two that actually support multi-attach, but they support for attached to Nitro instances. There is no mentioning of that, so cross that out. Then we have S3. Well, S3 is not a hierarchy directory structure. Maybe you can create one bucket, and from multiple EC2 instances you can read and write rapidly and concurrently, but it is not a shared storage. I mean, it is kind of it's not even attached to EC2 instances, so you can consider it as shared storage somehow, but it is not an hierarchical directory structure. It is an object storage. So cross that out. Hierarchical directory structure in the sense whatever you see on Windows operating system, right? You can go to folder, and another folder you can have multiple subfolders and etc. Okay, so that will leave us with EFS. As I mentioned, whenever you see shared storage, hierarchical directory structure, Linux instances, then the answer is EFS, because you can attach EFS to multiple EC2 you can attach EFS for each EC2 instance, and then you can have read copy from different instances into the same location without any problem. So that's our answer, guys. But the trick, as I mentioned, whenever you see this, go for EFS. Number 18. A company has an on-premise MySQL database that handles transactional data. The company is migrating the database to AWS Cloud. The migrated database must contain compatibility with the company's applications to use the database. Okay. The migrated database also must scale automatically during periods of increased demand. Okay. Which system requirement? So technically they just want to migrate their MySQL to cloud, and it should automatically scale without any manual intervention. Okay, so let's look at this option. So whenever you see that, what comes to your mind? Whenever you want to migrate, maybe it will be RDS, right? Because RDS is something where it is fully managed by AWS, and RDS supports MySQL database. You don't have to worry much about all that. And another thing you should come into mind is Amazon Aurora as well, because even Aurora supports MySQL and PostgreSQL. So you should get that in your mind as well. Okay. So let's look at all the options. Okay. So the first option, it says use native MySQL tools to migrate the database to Amazon RDS. For MySQL, configure elastic storage scaling. Okay, so I see some problems with this, but it will work. One problem I'm seeing is here it says must scale automatically during periods of increased demand. But what are we saying here? Elastic storage scaling, which means it only scales the storage it doesn't scale the capacity, the power of the database, right, or anything related to that. So obviously this is not going to work when the demand increases. That's not going to work. So even this works using native Microsoft. You can migrate, but that's too much overhead. And anyway, since they're not asking about overhead here, I'm fine with it. But the second one, it doesn't work. Configuring elastic storage scaling doesn't meet the demand of scaling automatically. So if you want to look at how does you scale the storage, here is a link where you can go ahead and read through it. Starting today, all these RDBSs support storage auto-scaling. Storage auto-scaling automatically scales storage capacity in response to growing database workloads with zero downtime. Okay. Previously, you had to manually provision storage capacity based on anticipated application demands. Under provisioning could result in application downtime, and over provisioning could result in underutilized resources and higher costs. With RDS storage auto scaling, you simply set your desired maximum storage limit, and auto scaling takes care of the rest. It continuously monitors actual storage consumption and scales capacity up automatically when actual utilization approaches provisioned storage capacity. So I mean, you can go through and read through it, but at the end of the day, it is about storage capacity. It has nothing to do with the other things like memory and CPU and etc. Okay, so that's about the first one. So let's look at the option 2, which is migrate the database to Redshift by using MySQL dump. Actually, you can do this. It is doable, not a problem. But as you know, as soon as you see Redshift, it is a data warehouse. They are talking here about the migrated database must maintain compatibility with the company's applications. There are already applications written on it. So if you switch to another database, again, there are going to be little bit changes. So that is not recommended here. And they are talking about turn on auto scaling for Amazon Redshift cluster. So let's cross this out. It's not. But if you want to look at clustering up and down in minutes, it is doable even for Redshift. You can go through this. They have something called introducing elastic resize and whatnot. Read through it. I'm not going to. But the answer, this is cross it out, this option, because again, it's a data warehouse. They don't want to change to anything else other than MySQL. Okay, then let's look at these two options. Both use database migration service, right? Database migration service, what is it? If you didn't look at it till now, let me take you there. Okay, so this is a tool where it is a managed migration and replication service that helps move your database and analytics workloads to AWS quickly, securely, and with minimal downtime and zero data loss. So technically, if you look at the picture, database and analytics fleet, whether it is in the EC2 or in Amazon RDS or on-premise, doesn't matter. You can migrate that from there to your AWS with ease. Okay, that's the data migration service. Okay, since we are migrating from MySQL on-premise to here, obviously you need this service to migrate the data or the database. Then there are the two differences here. You see, they are migrating to Amazon Aurora, they are migrating to Amazon DynamoDB. By default, you know that you can cross it out. Why do you want to do that? Because Amazon DynamoDB is a NoSQL database. It is not a relational database like MySQL. So you have to do a lot of changes because this is a key value pair kind of database than columns and rows and etc. So it doesn't work that way. So by blindly you can cross it out. Then that leaves us with Aurora. Okay, so migrate the database to Amazon Aurora. As you know, Aurora supports both MySQL and PostgreSQL, so you are fine with it. Then turn on the Aurora auto scaling for handling the periods of increased demand. Okay, so let's look at actually, maybe I might have a link for Aurora and Aurora auto scaling. We already know about Aurora. It's high performance, multi-AZ, distributed storage, flexible auto scaling compute, and etc. So let me see if I can find auto scaling features somewhere. I don't see it here. Let's see, testing. So it doesn't talk about it. Push button compute scaling. Okay, you can use the RDS APIs or the console to scale provisioned instances, powering your deployment up or down. Scaling operations typically complete in few minutes. Okay, so there you go. Even this has storage auto scaling as well. So it has both compute scaling, which the RDS is missing. It has storage auto scaling as well. Alright, so that's about it. Let's look at our question number 19. A company is building an e-commerce application and needs to store sensitive customer information. Okay, let's underline that. The company needs to give customers the ability to complete purchase transactions on the website. The company also needs to ensure that sensitive customer data is protected. Okay, even from database administrators. Interesting. Okay, so we need to meet these requirements. All right, so how do we do that? They just want to store sensitive customer information and it should be secured, and customer needs to give the ability to complete purchase transactions on the website, and it should be protected even from database administrators, right? So one tricky question here is, I mean, if you look at all these options, let's go through. They're saying store sensitive data. So one is using EBS, another is RDS, S3 and FSX. Okay, so let's go for this one first. Okay, store sensitive data in EBS volume. Use EBS encryption to encrypt the data, and use an IAM instance role to restrict access. Okay, so the trickiness here comes from this one, even from database administrator. So if you look at it, none of these are database other than the option B. So why did they specifically say database administrators? Okay, so by just picking that option, you can just go for option B. Okay, that's one way to look at it. Other way is, when you use EBS encryption to encrypt the data, what are we doing exactly here? If I go and check this one, you cannot hand pick a particular data, particular column in a file. Let's say if I'm storing an EBS, that's what it is, right? I cannot pick, like, in this file, this column encrypted. We don't have that much granularity, you know. So if you see, this offers seamless encryption of data volumes, boot volumes, and snapshots. So it encrypts the entire volume, which is not something the question is asking, right? It is asking, it needs to store sensitive customer information. That is not the only information we might be having, right? So just to store customer information, are you going to like have an elastic block storage and do all that? So no, right? Because we only want to encrypt one piece of information. Even in the sensitive customer information, there might be only, for example, that person might have his address, SSN, and etc. So the only sensitive information that there is maybe his SSN number, just one column in a particular data set. So this won't work for that. Same goes with the others as well. For example, here, store data in Amazon S3, use AWS KMS server-side encryption to encrypt the data. Then they are talking about use S3 bucket policies to restrict it. So let me go to that as well. Okay. Okay, so you have multiple ways how you can protect your data. One of them is encryption, right? S3. So S3 automatically encrypts all object uploads to all buckets. For object uploads, S3 supports server-side encryption with 4 key management options. Amazon S3 offers flexible security features to block unauthorized users from accessing your data. Use VPC endpoints to connect to use blah 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 blah. But again, this is again similar to EBS, right? So you are encrypting the entire bucket and all the objects within it, which I don't want. And then we have FSX for Windows Server. We might have read about it. If not, let's go through this. FSX, it's just fully managed file storage built on Windows Server. Okay. Actually, FSX has others as well. We went through them: NetApp, OpenZFS, Lustre, and Windows File Server. So the question is mentioning about Windows File Server. So if you have a Windows File Server and if you want to give that feel of Windows File Servers thingy on AWS, then Amazon FSX for Windows Server is the thing to go. So this just stores your Windows applications with full SMB support. Okay, so that is it. But what are they talking is, have that server, then mount the file share on application servers, then use Windows file permissions to restrict the access. Well, again, this is again when you restrict a person's access to this particular you need to do it at a file level or folder level for particular people. Okay, so maybe it kind of does give you the access not granular access, because again you are this is too much overhead if you ask me. Okay, and again it will either you are restricting for the complete file, which is like, let's say, as I mentioned, only one column has the sensitive data, not the others. So but when you do this, use Windows file permissions to restrict, then that is another story. And again here, then nowhere they are mentioning we have to use Windows file server and etc. Okay, because they have to give customers the ability to complete purchase transactions on the website and etc. And here we are talking about having Windows file share, Windows server, and mounting the file share and application servers and etc. So looks too far-fetched. At least it does the job to some extent, not completely. Okay, now leaves us to this option. And again, as I mentioned, why I won't go with others and directly go with this is because they use the word database administrators, which means we are using a database. We have to use a database to store this data. That's what they are talking about. So you need to pick that keyword and you can directly eliminate all and go directly to this. But as I explained, we can even cross them out because of whatever reasons I explained. Okay, so you might be thinking, okay, I will store data in RDS. So how do you encrypt using KMS client side? What does this exactly mean? Okay, I have the answer just for you. Okay, so you can perform SQL database client side encryption. What it actually does is, so you can encrypt to protect the underlying storage of these. However, some customers, see, this is what we are talking about with the EBS, encrypting the complete database or the snapshots or etc. But some customers may have greater data protection requirements which require encrypting data in use. For example, encryption is required when tokenizing solutions do not fit, such as when securely storing and then reading a primary account number. This is something that we are looking for, right? In another example, customers must prevent insiders, such as database administrators, from viewing sensitive information. For example, social security number, bank account number stored in database column. See, this is what they are asking specifically in our question. So bingo, right? I think from here they prepared that question. But anyways, that's why you need to read AWS blogs as well to pass the exam. But that's where the question stems from, and you have the answer. I don't think I have to go further to explain you. You can read the complete article if you would like to. Okay, let's go to question number 20. A company runs its applications on both Amazon Elastic Kubernetes service and on-premise Kubernetes clusters. So they are using both on-premise and AWS Kubernetes. The company wants to view all clusters and workloads from a central location. Which solution will meet these requirements with least? I think we looked at EKS a while ago, and there we clearly saw that you can have clusters from Amazon, maintained both on-premise and EKS. So let's look at that. Okay, but what they are saying is they have both on-premise EKS and cloud EKS. They just want to view all clusters and workloads information from a single location. Like you have particular tool on AWS and you want to see both the servers, clusters and workloads. And when you set up such tool, think about least operational overhead. Don't go overboard, doing it. That's what they are asking. So let's go through options. The first option they are talking about is use Amazon CloudWatch Container Insights to collect and group the cluster information. I mean, if you don't know about this service at a high level, it looks okay, fine. I think maybe the CloudWatch Container Insights, have the capability to collect and group the cluster information. Okay, so let's confirm if it is. Use CloudWatch Container Insight to collect, aggregate, summarize metrics and logs from containerized applications. Okay, AKS is a containerized application. Okay, Container Insights is available for ECS. Okay, it is available for EKS and Kubernetes platform on EC2. Container Insight supports collecting metrics from clusters deployed on Fargate for both. Okay, so if you look at this, it does provide the for EKS, but nowhere it is saying it supports on-premise EKS anywhere in this. Okay, CloudWatch automatically collects metrics for many resources, blah blah blah, content collects information, etc. Okay, so if you go here, it shows supported platforms. What are the supported platforms? They are Container Insight is available for Amazon Kubernetes platform on Amazon EC2 instances. It is not talking about anything about on-premise one. Okay, so we can cross this out. It does do the job, but it only does it for the Amazon EKS, not the on-premise Kubernetes cluster. Then let's look at option C, which is AWS Systems Manager to collect and view the cluster information. Okay, so let's go to the Systems Manager, and if you look at here, it says Application Manager, which is a capability of Systems Manager, integrates with EKS to provide information about health of your cluster infrastructure. Application Manager provides a component runtime view of the computing, networking, and storage resources in a cluster. You can't manage or view operations about your EKS pods or containers in Application Manager. So that takes away the second half of the question. So all clusters it will, but workloads it won't. So even if it does the on-premise, it doesn't matter because it doesn't provide us the view of the workload. So let's cross this out. Then we have use Amazon EKS Anywhere as the primary cluster to view the other clusters with native Kubernetes commands. Okay, so if you remember the EKS when we opened last time, there are several versions of EKS. I will show you again. One is EKS in cloud, which is what our one of the tool. Then EKS on Outpost, EKS Anywhere, and deploy applications with your own tools. Maybe something like an EC2 and etc. Okay, so they are talking about EKS Anywhere. Okay, so let's go to maybe features. And are they giving more information here? Let's see. Anywhere. Okay. With Amazon EKS Anywhere, you can easily create and operate Kubernetes clusters on-premise, including on your own virtual machines and bare metal servers. EKS saves you the complexity of building and supporting your own tooling to manage clusters. EKS Anywhere provides automation tooling that simplifies cluster creation, administration and operations on infrastructure such as bare metal, Sphere, cloud virtual machines. This also includes cloud virtual machines with default logging. It brings the additional blah blah blah. So if you see at a high level, this does the creation and operation of Kubernetes clusters at a cluster level and etc. and automation etc. But it is not talking anything about workloads from the central location for seeing both Amazon and on-premise, because for me it looks like it is just talking about setting up EKS anywhere on-premise. It's talking about completely on-premise. It is not talking anything about the Amazon one, so that doesn't work for me, so I will cross it out. That leaves me with only one thing, which is use Amazon EKS connector to register and connect all EKS clusters. So let's look at that. I hope I might have it somewhere here. Okay. Maybe don't I have better? Okay, here we go. We have the EKS connector here. So Amazon EKS allows you to connect any conformant Kubernetes cluster. Any conformant means it doesn't matter if it is on AWS or on-premise or on Moon, it doesn't matter. Any conformant Kubernetes cluster to AWS and visualize it on Amazon EKS console. You can connect any conformant cluster, including EKS Anywhere clusters running on-premise, self-managed clusters on EC2 and other Kubernetes cluster running outside of. Regardless where your cluster is running, you can use the Amazon EKS console to all the connected clusters and Kubernetes resources running on them, which is kind of the workloads running on them. Alright, so this is our answer. Okay, so this is just actually covering the entire EKS features that are available. That's nice. Okay, today we are going to do 5 more questions. Let's hope it already took half an hour for 5. Let's finish this in the next 15 minutes. A solutions architect, 21st question. A solutions architect needs to ensure that API calls to Amazon DynamoDB from Amazon EC2 instances in a VPC do not travel the internet. Okay, do you remember this one, guys? I told you. Which combination of steps should the solutions architect take to meet this requirement? So if you remember, I told you whenever you see DynamoDB and S3, and if they're talking about do not travel across the internet, then the option you should go for is gateway endpoint. Okay, if it is anything other than Amazon DynamoDB and S3, then you should go with interface endpoint, VPC endpoint, internet VPC endpoint. Do you remember that? All right. So here they are saying from EC2, you need to, the API calls will come to the EC2, and from EC2 they will go to Amazon DynamoDB. Okay, and you don't want the calls to Amazon DynamoDB from EC2 travel across the internet. Okay, so for that purpose, the Amazon DynamoDB has to be for that we have to create a gateway endpoint, not an interface endpoint. Okay, you have to remember this. Okay, you cannot forget it because it's simple. S3 DynamoDB gateway endpoint, everything else interface endpoint. Okay, I think that being said, I will refresh your memory on it. Right, we have two VPC endpoints, interface gateway. Interface enables connected to service over that gateway. This does over private link. Gateway endpoint doesn't do it over. Instead, it targets specific IP routes in an VPC route table. Okay, remember that those two differences. And then if you look at this picture, gateway VPC endpoints, Amazon DynamoDB and S3, whereas interface all the other services. All you have to do is remember that. So that particular article told you we have to do gateway endpoint. So this is the answer, and it also said you need to have a route table. Okay, So that actually gives you the answer. You don't even have to go through again. It says interface endpoint for EC2, but that's not what we want to restrict. We want to restrict in travel the internet access across EC2 and DynamoDB for DynamoDB calls to DynamoDB. So that has nothing to do with EC2. So cancel this out. And you creating an elastic network interface for endpoint, even if you are going with interface endpoint, you don't create it. When you create an interface endpoint, it will automatically behind the scenes creates a network interface for you. Let me see, I might have it somewhere here. Okay. Okay, so if you see this, to use this, you will create an interface VPC endpoint for a service outside of your VPC. This creates an elastic network interface in your subnet with a private IP address and blah blah blah. So what does that tell you? Even if there is a question where it is pointing to interface endpoint, you won't create an elastic network interface. By creating the interface endpoint, it will automatically do it for you. Then it's talking about creating a security group entry in the, you do this, but not for gateway. You will do it for interface endpoint. I think somewhere I will show you. Wait a minute. I think even in this link or some other link, I might have it. Since the interface endpoint is going to create an elastic network interface, this elastic network interface is going to have its own security group. So that's what this is talking about. You need to provide access and whatnot. Okay, so this is like 5 seconds question and answer, guys. DynamoDB, do not travel across internet, go for gateway endpoint, and gateway endpoint you need to create a route table entry. Question number 22. A company's website handles millions of requests each day, and the number of requests continues to increase. A solutions architect needs to improve the response time of the web application. The solutions architect determines that the application needs to decrease latency when retrieving product details from Amazon DynamoDB. Okay, so remember that you need to decrease latency when not making this request, but they are talking about decrease latency when retrieving product details from the DynamoDB. Okay, so they are asking which will meet with the least amount of operational overhead. Okay, I think we might have gone through a similar question if I am not wrong. Okay, so what are we trying to do? Improve the response time. They didn't say if you have to improve from seconds to milliseconds, milliseconds to microseconds. They just said improve the response time. Then they said decrease the latency from DynamoDB. Remember this? Decrease latency from DynamoDB, least operation. Whenever they say something like decrease and least operational overhead, don't try to change your database to something else, or don't try to introduce some other database in between these, because that will become considered as operational overhead. Remember that. Alright, that being said, let's go through the options. So they are talking about set up DynamoDB streams on the table and have AWS Lambda read from the table and populate. Okay, so how this works is you will still have the DynamoDB table, but you will create DynamoDB streams on that table so that it will stream that table data. Then you are going to have a Lambda read from the table. Then you are going to populate Amazon Elasticache, and then you are going to route all read requests through Elasticache instead of this. Don't you think this is too much? Like, instead of just reading from here, when you are doing from here, then you have streams, then it is streaming, then storing in Elasticache, and the application reads from Elasticache. Don't you think it is too much operational? It can be doable. I'm not saying it cannot be. Let me show you. DynamoDB streams, use cases, and design patterns. Okay, so this is how it is going to look. You will have your DynamoDB database here. Previously, application was reading directly, but that won't be the case anymore. You have DynamoDB, then the DynamoDB streams, then AWS Lambda, then you are going to have, what did they have? They have Elastic Cache, and then the application is going to read data from the Elasticache and whatnot. That to me is too much operational overhead, so I won't pick it. Then we have setting up elastic cache for memcached between DynamoDB and okay, this is little better than this at least. It's just saying putting a elastic cache memcache between the DynamoDB and the web application. Route all read requests through the memcache. This will work, but the problem with it is when you use memcache, then you have to refactor your code. It is a big overhead. Okay, but we'll leave it. Let's explore the others. Okay, this is talking about memcached and this is talking about Redis, so both are kind of similar. Instead, this is just memcached and this is to Redis. Okay, and then we have the option of DynamoDB accelerator cluster. Route all read through this. So when you use this, you have to think of setting up memcache. Setting up memcache is fine, but when you route all the applications to memcache, then you have to refactor your thingies to accommodate etc. that, or to store data in memcache. You need to do some changes there. Okay, so if I go ahead and open this, accelerate application database performance, and then caching service built to deliver real-time performance for real-time applications. This and the Redis and memcached are kind of does the same thing, sub-millisecond latency, in-memory store, extra secure hardened, compatible fully, etc. Okay, but these two have some operational overhead. But when I look at the DynamoDB accelerator, it's very straightforward, right? This is still part of Amazon DynamoDB. Okay, it is fully managed, highly available caching service, which similar to Redis and memcached. It delivers up to 10 times performance improvements from milliseconds to microseconds. If you look at the other two, they give you in milliseconds, sub-millisecond, right? But it is microseconds. So this one is more powerful than those two. And if I look at the diagram, you have that, then you have the DAX cluster. Your application can directly go there and take it. So since this is part of DynamoDB, the operational overhead compared with the other two is much less. Okay, so that's why you will go with this. Remember, again, whenever you see a question which talks about DynamoDB and if they want to improve the response time and decrease latency, or if they want to cache the data, etc., just blindly go with DynamoDB accelerator. 23. A company receives data from millions of users totaling about let's say 1 TB, doesn't matter, 1 TB each day. The company provides its users with usage reports going back to 12 months. All usage data must be stored for at least 5 years. Okay, which storage solution? So they're just looking for a storage solution which is cheap. Okay, remember what I told you? Whenever you are looking for a storage solution which is cheap, what is the cheapest? S3. But unfortunate for us, all the options are S3. So they are testing the classes, storage classes in this question. In order to do that, all you need to do is read the question properly. So what do they want? They want to have access to 12 months immediately, right? So they want to provide users with, so they want to provide access to 12 months immediately. So that will remove this option, and yeah, that is the only option it will remove, because one zone free infrequent storage classes for accessing infrequently. Nowhere in the question is talk about the first 12 months they are infrequently accessing. They didn't tell us that. So yes, then standard. Then they are saying all users data must be stored for at least 5 years, which means after 12 months they are not telling if they are accessed infrequently, frequently. No, they are just saying store them to comply with regulatory auditing. Even if that happens, it will happen once or twice a year. Am I right? So in order to do that, we don't need to store the data in infrequent access after 12 months. So cross that out. we don't need to, again, this is standard infrequent, this is one zone infrequent, we don't need to do that. So cross that out, we will be left with this one. Deep archive. This is fine with us because the question is not saying anything about after 1 year it has to be, available within couple of hours or minutes. It's not saying. Just for regulatory and auditing, storage glacier deep archive is fine, because in general whenever there is an auditing, they will let us know a couple of days before. Then what we can do is we can connect it to the deep archive and bring in the data. As you know, deep archive has 12 to 48 hours. Within 12 hours you will get the data, so that is totally fine because the requirement is most cost effective. So this will meet that. So let me open up quickly storage classes just for you guys to look at. We have deep archive, right? So retrieval time within 12 hours. So it says 12 to 48. But if you see, okay, so let's look at here. Particularly those in high regulated industries such as financial services, healthcare, public sectors that retain data sets for 700 or longer to meet regulatory compliance requirements. So this is all you need to look at. Okay, you can go through the other classes as well if you want, but usually you will use Glacier Deep Archive to store data for regulatory and auditing. 24. A company hosts multiple applications on AWS for different product lines. The applications use different compute resources, including EC2 instances and application load balancers. The applications run in different AWS accounts under the same organization in AWS organizations across multiple AWS regions. Teams for each product line have tagged each compute resource in individual accounts. Okay, same organization in AWS organization across multiple. Okay, the company wants more details about the cost for each product line from the consolidated billing feature in organizations. So it is stating that there is a feature called consolidated billing in organizations, which is good. So what they are saying is the company wants more details about the cost for each product line, right? So think of it as like there is this brand, let's say, we have Amazon, right? It's a company, okay? So they have multiple applications on AWS for different product lines, okay? So Amazon, it is selling everything. Let's assume that they also sell cars. That is one product line. They sell airplanes, let's say, that is another product line. Okay, so they have multiple applications for these each product lines, and they're saying the applications use different compute resources, including EC2s and ALBs. That's fine. The applications run in different AWS accounts. So even though you have product lines and etc., these applications run in different AWS accounts under same organizations across multiple AWS regions, which means even though we have a product line of cars, each region will store or run its applications separately. So you have one account for USA under, again, it's same company Amazon. Maybe let's say Amazon is selling cars in India as well, so it has another account, and then maybe in Canada, then another account. So you see there are different AWS accounts under the main company's account, but each one has selling cars and they are running the same applications but on a different account. You get it, right? Okay, but all these accounts like the India account, US account and Canada account, they're all under the same organization in AWS organizations. Okay, so and each of these sub companies, the company in US, the company in India, they are tagging each compute resource in their accounts, which means when they are using EC2 is tagged with tagged and with the product line, which means cars. So when they spin EC2 for running that cars thingy, they're tagging cars and ALB cars and etc. in individual accounts. Okay, they are not tagging with the account I mean, there is no point in tagging with their account, but they're tagging with the cars, airplanes, and etc. in multiple accounts. The company wants more details about cost of, so that is pretty much easy, right? Organizations will already have how much they are spending in each account, but they want to know the product line wise. And let's say in our case, there are 3 accounts in 3 countries in 3 different regions, each one tagging with cars and airplanes respectively with whatever applications they are spinning up. Okay, now the question is, how do you give the details about these costs by each product line? Consolidate. Obviously, we have to consolidate among 3 because 3 accounts has the details of applications running easy, for cars and airplanes. We need to put them in a single place. And how do we do that? That is the question. Okay. Let's look at the first option. Select a specific AWS generated tag in AWS billing console. All right. So before going that, we need to first see what do you call it? We need to first select it. We need to make that active first. Then we will select it. So we have 2 options for active, 3 options for this. Means one is right from ABC, one is right from D and E. So let's look at these 2 first, okay? Because first step in using a tag is like you need to first activate it, then only you can use that specific tag in the billing thingy to look at the amount or cost. So you have 2. So first one is activate the selected tag from each AWS account. Well, first things first, you cannot do this. You cannot do this activation of a selected tag from each AWS. I mean, you can do it, but it has to done at an organization level because this particular tag is used by other accounts as well, right? The reason being, the individual account won't even have access to the consolidated billing, so they cannot go and directly select the tag and activate it. Only the organization's management account has access to the cost allocations, my bad. So you activate the tag from cost allocations tab, and that is only available for the organization's management account. It is not available to the each AWS account. You can check it. You can go and check it from your, I mean, if you go to your account, you will see it because you are the owner of it. So, but in general, each AWS account, the AWS account won't have access. The, what do you call it? The child AWS accounts won't have access to the consolidated, what is it? Cost allocation. Okay. So let me open up notes for you to look at. So first of all, we have AWS billing console. Then let's look at cost allocation tags. Okay. Because this is the place where you activate the tags and whatnot. Okay, so if you see, AWS provides 2 types of cost allocation tags. One is AWS generated and another one is user defined. And in our case, it is user defined tags, not AWS generated tags. But what I want to show you is consolidated billing. This is what they are talking about. You can use the consolidated billing feature in AWS to consolidate billing and payment for multiple accounts, right? That's what we are looking to do, combined usage. But what I want to show you is the allocation, cost allocation part, where it has to tell you you can only activate it. Let's search on activate. Okay, it's not talking about it. Let me open this one. Maybe it will talk about that. Okay, only a management account in an organization and single accounts that aren't members of an organization have access to cost allocation tax. This is what I was looking for. Okay, remember this. Okay, only management account, or if it is a single account, they have access to this. Like for example, if you have a separate account, you will have access to it. But if this account is part of other parent account, then they won't have access. Only the management account will have access to it. So that is out of picture. This is the right answer among these two. Then the other part of this is you activated it, but now you need to select it. Okay, out of these three, this will cross out very easily. The reason being, it's talking about specific AWS generated tag, but this tag is custom made or user defined tag. So we can just cross that out. Then we have these two. One is saying you need to do that from AWS billing. Another is saying resource groups. Okay, but in order to know this, you need to know what exactly is resource group, what exactly is billing console. But since we are talking about billing and all, the answer is this. But I'm going to show you why this is not the answer. Resource groups, what exactly is a resource group? Okay, you can use resource groups to organize your AWS resources. Resource groups is the service that lets you manage and automate tasks on large numbers of resources at one time. Okay, so it's just telling you how to create and manage resource groups. Resource group is something that you can group different resources in it, and you can automate tasks like, okay, spin up whatever the resources that are in this particular group and etc. Okay, so obviously it's not talking anything about selecting specific tags in that, but again we want to look at the cost for each product line. Why would we even go to resource? Instead we will do that in the AWS billing console. Okay, so this is question is about a billing. It just try to confuse you with, okay, we have different accounts, we have product lines, blah blah blah, but when you understand it using an example, it's easy. Okay, 25th question. A company has two VPCs that are located in US West 2 region within the same AWS account. Okay, same region, they have two VPCs in the same account. The company needs to allow network traffic between these two VPCs. Approximately 500 GB of data transfer will occur between VPCs each month. Which is the most cost-effective solution to connect these two VPCs? Okay, a tip here: whenever they ask you to connect two VPCs together, just go for VPC peering. You don't have to look at any other option. Wherever it says VPC peering, go for it. Remember, if it says between just two VPCs, if it says multiple VPCs, go for transit gateway. Okay, do you remember that? If it is asking you to transfer data between two VPCs and then go for VPC peering. If it says multiple VPCs, then go for transit gateway. In here, even transit gateway is the right answer, but it is not cost effective. Okay, you just need to remember that. Okay, since this is the first time we jumping into all these things, so let's learn one by one. So let's first learn about the transit gateway, since it is in the first place. So it connects Amazon VPCs, accounts and on-premise networks to a single gateway. If you look at the diagram, you will understand more easily. So from on-premise, a VPN connection, you can connect to it, VPC connect to it, direct way connect to it, and then you can connect to cloud. So technically this is like a hub where you can get all kinds of connections from on-premise, and you can connect it to your VPC, Amazon VPC here, you can connect to it. Okay, so remember that transit gateway is like a hub where everything can come together and then go to Amazon VPC. And then we have site-to-site VPN. So as I mentioned, this will do the job, but it is not cost effective for just two VPCs. You can just go for VPC peering. Then we have site-to-site VPN. And if you are saying why it is not, well, let me show you the pricing here. Okay, in transit gateway, you are charged for the number of connections that you make to the transit gateway per hour and the amount of traffic that flows through that. Okay, remember that. Then we have site-to-site VPN. At a high end, what it does is it creates a secure connection between your data center and AWS resources. So this is not between VPC to VPC. This is instead between your on-premise VPN and VPC. So this doesn't even work for us. Okay, so let's cross that out. Then we have direct connect. I think we already know this, right? Direct connect is a direct connection between your data center and your AWS thingy. Okay, so if you look at this again, this takes at least 1 month for setting up Amazon Direct Connect, and the pricing it depends on, I think, your delivery partner. For example, if Verizon is setting up yours, then it depends on whatever Verizon is charging you, etc. But again, we don't have to even look at these costs because this is between on-premise and all, not from VPC to VPC, so ignore it. Now let's look at the VPC peering connection itself. Okay, so if you look, you have a VPC, another VPC, then you do the VPC peering. That's it. It's as simple as that. No magic involved, no nothing here, right? And if you look at this, there is no charge to create VPC peering connection. All data transfer over a VPC peering connection that stays within an availability zone is free. Even though I think our question says it's not within the same availability zone, it is within the same region. It doesn't talk to you about that. Charges apply for data transfer over VPN that cross availability zones and regions. Okay. If you look at it, they said it is in the same region, so there are still some charges. But again, for just creating it, you don't have any charge like transit gateway. Transit gateway charges you per hour and etc. And it also charges the data transfer fees. Here, it will only transfer for the data transfer. So obviously, C will be the answer. Alright, we are at the end today, so even though it is 1 hour, we completed 10 questions. I'm proud of myself, and I hope you are following with all the questions, and I hope my explanation makes sense. If it doesn't, please leave a comment. Even if it does, please leave a comment and do like the video. It will really help me. And if you already didn't subscribe to the channel, please go ahead and do it and hit the notification bell so that whenever I upload videos, you will get to know about that. Alright, thank you very much and all the best. See you in the next one.